Unit 17. Gateway. Trade secret law aims to promote innovation, although it accomplishes this objective in a very different manner than patent protection. Notwithstanding the advantages of obtaining a patent, many innovators prefer to protect their innovation through secrecy. They may believe that the cost and delay of seeking a patent are too great, or that secrecy better protects their investment and increases their profit. They might also believe that the invention can best be utilized over a long period of time than a patent would allow. Without any special legal protection for trade secrets, however, the secretive inventor risks that an employee or contractor will disclose the proprietary information. Once the idea is released, it will be free as the air under the background norms of a free market economy. Such a predicament would lead any inventor seeking to rely upon secrecy to spend an inordinate amount of resources building high and impassable fences around their research facilities, and greatly limiting the number of people with access to the proprietary information. Exercises. Number 1. The power of social comparison is an important factor in human motivation. Cultural animals set their goals by what others in their community want. If nature had programmed us merely to find food, shelter, and someone with whom to live, people would have had little urge to find ways to make life better once those basic natural goals were satisfied. But the cultural animal tunes in to his society, and as society standards change from year to year or century to century, each individual learns to want whatever currently signifies the good life. What is a luxury for one generation, such as cable television or a second car, is considered a necessity in the next generation. The shifting standards of happiness depend on human motivational plasticity, which is rooted in keeping up with one's neighbors. The constant factor is that cultural animals want to keep up with their peers. Number 2. Joseph Ledoux, an American neuroscientist, suggests that humans have a non-conscious danger detector that sizes up incoming information before it reaches conscious awareness. If it determines that the information is threatening, it triggers a fear response. Because this non-conscious analysis is very fast, it is fairly crude and will sometimes make mistakes. Thus, it is good to have a secondary, detailed processing system that can correct these mistakes. Suppose that you are on a hike and suddenly see a long, skinny brown object in the middle of the path. Your first thought is, snake, and you stop quickly with a sharp intake of breath. Upon closer analysis, however, you realize that the object is a branch from a small tree, and you go on your way. According to Ledoux, you performed an initial, crude analysis of the stick non-consciously, followed by a more detailed, conscious analysis. Number 3. How do we improve our problem-solving skills? It first starts simply with the intrinsic desire to learn and to love the process of learning. Lifelong learners, too, are frequently interdisciplinary thinkers. They see the value of the complexities and subtleties of various concepts, understanding when ideas from one area may provide a solution to a problem in another. That isn't to say that lifelong learners must become specialists in all fields. On the contrary, they are significantly more likely to recognize where their knowledge ends and where it begins. However, those self-perceived frontiers can also reveal when collaboration is required and when it's best to follow someone else's lead. In this approach, lifelong learning can help us solve problems in both our professional and personal lives. It encourages us to improve ourselves, teaches us how things function, hints at what's possible, and most importantly, allows us to tune out and focus on what counts. Number 4. We live in a world that has always been very diverse in terms of adaptations to both our physical and social environments. These diversities have existed over many years of human evolution with limited conflict. Initially, when conflict occurred, it happened mostly in areas where there was competition for natural resources needed for the survival and functioning of particular societies. An example of this was the competition among the Plains Indians for territory and for buffalo. The buffalo roamed over the plains, thus causing conflict between tribes for territory and for the buffalo, which was their main food source. Although these conflicts were often severe, they were highly localized. In today's world, with mass media, the world has become less localized, but is still very diverse. As a result, many cultures with diverse values, as with the Plains Indians, have come into contact and have increased the potential for misunderstanding and conflict. Number 5. Digital citizenship, digital leadership, big data, internet safety, and privacy are high on the list of discussions for media literacy educators. Teachers are concerned by the amount of technology that students are exposed to on a regular basis, and are debating how to handle those technology tools in the classroom. School administrators worry constantly about how much freedom they should grant teachers when it comes to these platforms, as well as the questions involved in allowing students to use network services for personal or educational use. Parents worry about how their children might be exploited on the internet. Students want to know why their favorite tools are constantly being monitored, taken away from them, or limited in schools. They question why education is not keeping up with their own technology preferences, and why teachers and administrators aren't seeing the possibilities of how they can become leaders with technology. These concerns lead back to classroom educators, who must be conscious of all these issues while at the same time bringing some perspective to these conversations. Number 6. A great example of why history matters, especially old histories, is offered by taking a close look at the word creativity itself. The term's etymological roots take us back to the Latin verb creare, which meant bringing something forth, making or producing something. However, this notion was not applied to human creativity for several centuries. Instead, the idea of creation was associated with God and the generative powers of nature. Different terms, ars and artis, more similar to today's notion of art, were applied to human forms of making, both technical and artistic. As such, the earliest 20th century uses of create were in the passive past participle, was created. It is only in the 15th century that the present tense, to create, and present participle, creating, of the verb began to be used. Thus, for hundreds of years, creativity was associated with the divine as opposed to the human. This conception was first challenged in the Renaissance and replaced more or less entirely during the Enlightenment.